I want to talk briefly about where we are, because in the shadow of today, we have lost 585,000 Americans to the deadly virus. We've lost just over 6,500 fellow Coloradans to COVID-19. So many individuals and families are without one of their loved ones this year, and I want to express my condolences to everybody who suffered loss and those who are still fighting for recovery from the deadly virus. But, you know, existential struggle and dreams deferred, while they may have become a familiar sign of our time, we don't need to passively look towards better days. We need to actively bring them into existence. And thanks to the Biden-Harris administration for their efforts to deliver real relief to Coloradans and to all of America when we need it the most through the American Rescue Plan Act. And we're grateful for the members of Colorado's federal delegation that supported this Herculean effort. We're joined by Representative Diana DeGette, Representative Ed Perlmutter, Representative Jason Crow, and Representative Joe Nagoos. You know, before allocating a dime of the $3.8 billion in state aid that was part of the $27 billion that Colorado got from American Rescue Plan funds, leaders at our state heard from diverse communities. We held more than a dozen meetings through the Build Back Stronger listening tour with constituencies across the state, learning about how this one-time relief can have the best positive impact and build the best positive future for our state. We heard so many moving stories. Coloradans struggling with mental and behavioral health challenges, navigating skyrocketing housing prices while trying to provide for their families. We heard that Coloradans in our state are ready to recover, but there are too many challenges that hold us back. This has been a collaborative effort across local government, state government, the private sector, and today I'm thrilled we're putting forward a package that's true to the Colorado values that we hold dear. First, this package includes $1.3 billion, a full third of the funding, that shores up Colorado's budget. That is to ensure that our fiscal footing is the strongest that it's ever been here in the state of Colorado. I'm also proud that about a third of the money will go towards tackling three of the most significant challenges facing our state: support for workforce development, support for reducing housing costs, and mental and behavioral health. Finally, a third of the funding will go towards recovery and relief to create jobs, help Coloradans in need. That includes modernizing our transportation system, resulting in a $5 billion investment in infrastructure over 10 years with some of the one-time funds as a catalyst. It includes investing in public lands and supporting our agriculture and other needs to help with our recovery. We've heard communities across our state loud and clear. The federal stimulus funds that flow from Colorado offer a once-in-a-generation opportunity to improve our quality of life, invigorate our economy, and help our state recover faster and stronger than ever before. Colorado, we've been held back for too long. And while no amount of state or federal dollars can bring those that we lost back, we know that we can rebuild stronger than ever before. And these American Rescue Act funds will truly help power the Colorado comeback. With that, I'm happy to turn it over to the Dean of Colorado's congressional delegation, Representative Diana DeGette.
Thank you so much, Governor. I can't tell you what a thrill it is for me, and I know the other members of our congressional delegation, to join our compatriots in the state legislature and you here on the steps of the Capitol on this wonderful day. This is the first time that all of us have been together without masks. And we can clap for that. The extraordinary advances that we've made under this administration in getting vaccines out to America have really been unprecedented. And as a former state legislator myself, I know we're in the end days of the session. I hear that the legislature was here till 11 o'clock Friday night, and I know how difficult it is in a good year to deal with the long bill and the state budget, much less a state budget coming off of a pandemic with the reduced state revenues. And that's why the American Rescue Plan was such an important priority, not just for myself, but also the other members of our congressional delegation who joined me today, because it puts money in people's pockets. It helps keep people in their homes and get them back to work, and it helps the state of Colorado, the city and county of Denver, and all of our other municipalities recover from the shock that the pandemic put upon our institutions. And we're just delighted that Colorado has gotten $3.8 billion, that's a B, of this money, because it really will help us build back better, and that's what we need to do. So thank you for having me. Thank you for having the rest of the members of the delegation. We fought hard, and I know Ed, Jason, and Joe will agree with me. All four of us fought hard to make sure there was aid for state and local governments in this bill, and we can't be more delighted than to hear the governor talk about the exciting plan for this. I will just say to my friends in the legislature and Governor Polis, to you, stay tuned, because now we're working on an infrastructure bill. Thank you very much.
You're fine, Representative Congresswoman Nagoos. Hi everyone, I'm Alec Garnett. I'm Speaker of the House. I'm very, very excited to be here today. I want to thank our federal delegation. We were in constant communication since the pandemic, whether or not that was calls with both the House and the Senate delegations, whether or not it was phone calls late at night to Congressman Perlmutter asking if this relief was going to come to the state because of the dire situation Colorado found itself in as we were trying to balance our budget last year. If it wasn't for the leadership of the congressional delegation behind us, we wouldn't be here today, and I am very, very grateful and thankful for the work that they got done to get this needed relief here to Colorado.
Back to that.
Yeah, as you should. Back in March, in the foyer just behind us, we launched a statewide listening tour because we knew these dollars were going to be moving to the state, and we wanted to hear from community leaders from across Colorado about the pressing challenges facing them and the solutions that they had to fix them. We should all be proud of the work that went into that listening tour and the results that came out. The plan we're outlining is a responsible framework to spend these dollars in a way that is precise, effective, and will have a lasting impact on our state. We listened to those ideas that Coloradans shared, and we've developed a multi-pronged collaborative approach that will turn these ideas into reality. First, we'll use some of the relief dollars this legislative session to fortify our state budget, like the governor said. This component is key to budget responsibility and making sure that the investments we make and the recovery we hope to build are sustainable in years to come. Before we conclude this session, we will strategically invest additional funds to help Colorado build back stronger. But we will also set aside upwards of $700 million for future economic stimulus, primarily allowing us the opportunity to look at how our economy is recovering, to determine where the gaps may be, and to make sure we're investing those dollars strategically in the future legislative session. This summer, we're going to take the time that we need to dive deep and craft thoughtful policies to build a sustainable recovery and create transformational change on some of the key issues that we heard from the listening tour and the key issues that the state is facing around behavioral health, housing, education, and workforce. We will create an interim task force process to bring together policy experts, lawmakers with deep experience in these issues, and the administration in a transparent process to make recommendations and get these policies right. I'm excited to be here. My family has deep roots in this state, and we've seen Colorado change, grow, prosper, take hits, and get back up. This is the next step in building back a stronger Colorado. And with that, I'm very excited to introduce Michael Lipfield, CFO of PAX 8.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael Lipfield, CFO of PAX 8. I'd like to thank Governor Polis for inviting us here today and to speak about PAX-8's success and the dedication and strong partnership that PAX-8 has with the Office of Economic Development and International Trade. PAX-8 is a homegrown company of Colorado. We provide a marketplace for cloud applications for IT professionals that service the SMB market. PAX-8 recognizes the incredible talent and opportunity here in the state and is helping grow the technology community. PAX-8 was founded in Colorado in 2012 before the strong adoption of cloud-based technology. The cloud adoption for our marketplace has grown over the past few years, matching our founder's vision, transforming a central location to buy cloud applications. PAX-8 has experienced tremendous growth over the period and have worked so closely with the OEDIT and the EDC and applied for loans in February of 2020, or tax incentives, and that was prior to the pandemic. This allowed us to thrive during this period. Through the local neutral employment incentive and jobs, and also the jobs growth incentive tax credit programs, PAX-8 has grown its operations in Colorado from 350 employees to over 675 employees, of which 600 of those are located in the great state of Colorado. Over the past 14 months, we have increased our employee headcount in Colorado by over 230 employees. We've also grown our presence internationally, expanding into the UK, employing 75 people there. We have established a diversity and inclusion department where we are committed to hiring minority applications in our workforce. We currently comprise of 10% Black, 10% Asian, over 30% female. Included in that number is over 10% of our workforce are veterans. Our workforce varies in age from individuals in their 20s to those that are over 65. We are in the process of opening a Colorado Springs office, which we plan to expand in the coming years. PAX-8 is proud to be the first company to participate in the Loan Incentive Program. Through the loan program, we committed to 55 rural hires over the next 5 years. We did not realize the wealth of qualified applications in rural Colorado. We currently employ 16 people in rural communities that covers over 7 departments at PAX-8. We have opened an office in Florence, Colorado, in Fremont County. We plan on opening our next rural office in the Grand Valley in Q4 of 2021. This will provide opportunities in the tech industry for those that live in Grand Junction and the Grand Mesa community, and also provide opportunity for graduates in Colorado Mesa University. And it gives people the ability to work in the community that they went to college and also where they grew up. We are committed, along with the state, to expand our rural profile, expecting to exceed the 55 rural hires in numbers and quickly exceed the original forecast. We are proud to be one of the great places to work in Colorado. I commend our state and local governments in establishing such an effective program where people can continue to live and work in communities they love. Thank you. Next, Representative Perlmutter. Thank you, everyone.
Good morning, and thank you, Mike, and thank you for the story of your company and its growth and its success here in Colorado, which all of us appreciate. My name's Ed Perlmutter. I'm the congressman for the 7th Congressional District, which is Adams County and Jefferson County. And many of you know I've voted thousands of times in my career here as a state senator and also as a member of the House of Representatives. And I can tell you 2 of the most consequential votes I've ever taken in my life, I've taken in these first few months of this year. First was to accept the Electoral College results on January 6th, which then teed up probably the biggest, most consequential piece of legislation I've ever worked on, which is the American Rescue Plan. It's a massive piece of legislation that is focused on stabilizing and stimulating our economy while striving to make workers and families whole, supporting businesses, healthcare workers, and other frontline workers who have kept our country running, and expediting COVID-19 vaccine distribution to get the pandemic under control and our economy back up and running, and allows us not to have masks this morning, as Diana was saying. The American Rescue Plan delivers exactly what the country needs and will ensure a strong economic recovery. Like much of the COVID response, much of our recovery will take place right here at the local level and the state level, which is why I and the other members of our delegation advocated for as much funding with as much flexibility as possible for our state and local governments. The American Rescue Plan delivered on that front, providing $350 billion to state and local governments across the country, and as Jared said, including $3.8 billion to the state of Colorado and $292 million to the cities and counties in my district in Adams County and Jefferson County. I want to extend my appreciation to Governor Polis and the state legislature for their partnership and tireless efforts during these past 15 months to keep Coloradans safe and support them during this difficult time. The federal delegation has strong leadership at the state level, which has helped Colorado endure the pandemic better than most parts of the country. Thank you all very much for your time and attention. And unlike the dean of the delegation, I will introduce the next speaker. He is the president of the Colorado Senate, Leroy Garcia.
Well, thank you, Congressman Perlmutter. COVID-19 has impacted every corner of our state, and even though our economy has rebounded faster than initially expected, Coloradans' comebacks looked very different in different parts of the state. The pandemic exacerbated many of the existing problems that our society is faced with, and too many people are still struggling to recover. That is why we have committed to use this $3.8 billion opportunity to provide relief to those struggling the most. We have set aside over $700 million to rebuild Colorado's economy and ensure that our state is the best place in the country to start your business and or raise your family. On our listening tour, we heard that communities desperately need investments in broadband, solar energy installation, unemployment insurance trust funds, and more to recover and build back even stronger from the economic impacts of this pandemic. By using the interim process to make targeted recommendations, the General Assembly can come back to the 2022 legislative session ready to implement these ideas and make real transformational changes. Rural Coloradans have had to deal with more than their fair share of the economic hardship during this pandemic, and thus far, we have invested nearly $70 million of state stimulus funds to boost the agriculture industry and rural communities. But thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act we are committed to investing even more to help ensure that rural communities have the resources that they need, not just to repair what this pandemic has broken, but to build back even stronger. And I have the privilege of introducing our friend, Congressman Joe Nagoos.
Well, good morning. It's great to be here, and it's great to be back in Colorado. I certainly can attest to that, as can my colleagues in the Colorado congressional delegation. And I want to thank the governor for bringing us all together today. If there's one thing that's clear to me, based on the remarks you've heard already, and certainly our conversations with legislative leadership, it is that help is here. We have worked tremendously hard over the past 15 months to help lead our state through a very tumultuous time. It's been a very difficult 15 months for our state and for our country, with a once-in-a-generation pandemic, many lives lost, small businesses closed, workers laid off, and a confluence of other crises that have happened simultaneously, including, as the governor well knows, 2 of our largest wildfires in the state of Colorado's history that happened simultaneously, both of which happened in my district last year. And yet, through it all, our state, I believe, in my view, is stronger today than the day that the pandemic first began 15 months ago. And that is in no small part due to the incredible work of everyday Coloradans stepping up to the plate, and of course, in no small part due to our governor and his incredibly thoughtful leadership during this very tumultuous time. I am so grateful for the governor's leadership, and he may get a little embarrassed by me saying this, but Diana, myself, Ed, Jason, we have the pleasure of serving with a lot of members of Congress who served with him when he was a congressman for Colorado's 2nd Congressional District. And there isn't a single member, Governor, who doesn't stop us in the hallways or on the floor to applaud you and your service to the state of Colorado for the way in which you led our state during the course of this pandemic. While we're at it with some congratulatory remarks, a thank you to the governor's staff, to his cabinet, to the incredible people who work each and every day as public servants in this building and in buildings across the Denver metro area, including the OSPB director, who I had the privilege of working with when I was DORA director, Lauren Larson, who's helped stabilize our budget at a very critical time. I would just say this. There's a lot in the American Rescue Plan for us to be proud about and excited about. You heard my colleague, the distinguished member from the 7th Congressional District, Ed Perlmutter, talk in great detail about the statistics. I represent northwestern Colorado, 10 counties, spanning from Loveland to Bailey, from Granby to Broomfield, from Fort Collins to Estes Park to Boulder, everywhere in between. And I cannot tell you how tremendous the impact will be of those local dollars that will be flowing to those cities and to those counties with populations far smaller than 500,000 in my part of the state. And that's thanks to the incredible work of the Congress and, of course, both of our senators, who I know couldn't be here today, but who also led the way in securing local relief in the American Rescue Package. It's incredibly important, and it will dovetail with the historic investments that the state has now decided to make, and we're very grateful for the thoughtfulness in terms of how they've decided to appropriate those funds. We've still got a long way to go. There's a lot of work left to be done, investments to make in broadband and housing affordability in our infrastructure, but as the dean of our delegation said, more help will be on the way, and we'll continue to partner with our state legislative leadership and with the governor every step of the way. And now have the privilege of being able to introduce the distinguished Majority Leader, House Majority Leader, the pride of Pueblo, apologies to Leroy, Representative Zenaya Esgar.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the pride of Pueblo, considering that the Senate President's also from Pueblo. Thank you so much for joining us today. I want to start by saying that I am truly optimistic that we are on our way to a strong recovery. Having been the chair of the Joint Budget Committee last year when we were talking about cutting over $3 billion in state funds just to get through, we've seen small businesses start to bounce back, and lots of employers are looking to ramp up hiring. Our responsibility now, though, is to work towards an equitable recovery where all Coloradans have the opportunity to succeed. After nearly every economic downturn, we've seen unequal recovery where those who were doing well before bounce back faster, while low and middle income workers face a longer and tougher hole to climb out of. That's why we are going to place a significant focus on getting people back to work and making housing more affordable. This will not only grow our economy, but will forge more inclusive and equitable recovery for every Coloradan. We need to find ways to be sure people who have been out of work have a clear path forward to finding meaningful employment, a real opportunity to learn new skills, and a way to be sure they can provide for themselves and their families. It's time we invest in workers across this entire state. As our economy begins to heat up, home prices and rents are increasing as well. By making significant investments in housing now, more Coloradans can find a place to live near where they work. Simply put, we need more residential housing units, and we're going to use this money to help build them. Recognizing that far too many Coloradans are experiencing homelessness, we're going to find a statewide effort to help those in need of long-term housing. As you've heard already, some of what we'll do will be developed through an interim process this summer. Our goal is to deploy affordable housing across the state as quickly and as equitably as possible. This is a once-in-a-generation investment in Colorado's future, and we are going to seize this opportunity and use these funds to make the transformational changes our communities need to thrive and set up every community for success decades into the future. I too want to thank the federal delegation who's joined with us today and our two U.S. senators as well. It's so great to know that we have people in Washington who are fighting every single day for the needs of Colorado and who understand their districts. I appreciate you all for being here. And one of those members is up next. It's my honor to introduce Representative Jason Crow.
Thank you, Danae. Thank you to all the leadership here, Governor Polis, for your steadfast leadership. I'm going to do what my staff hates me doing, and on a Monday morning I'm going to go rogue and toss out my talking points. But what's new? We do know things are getting back to normal, though, because the presser started by us being shushed by Diana DeGette. So we're getting back to normal. So you know I love you, Diana. There is a lot of excitement and some jubilation here, a lot of optimism. We're here without our masks for the first time in a long time. But I want to take a moment and think about where we were a year ago today and where we've been the past 14 months. This money, this relief money, is going to help us build back better. It's going to help us keep people in their homes, keep businesses, help us reopen our schools safely, save lives by getting shots in arms. But the path here has been a long one, and it's been a dark one. I think this morning about the countless faces and stories of the past 14 months. The thousands of friends and neighbors and Coloradans who died, sitting in a hospital room, holding the hand of a maskless nurse, wondering where their families were. The countless business owners that saw their businesses shutter and their dreams and their life savings disappear. The children who wondered when they were going to see their friends again and when they could get back to school. The stories are countless, and they're heartbreaking and they're devastating. We don't get here today without leadership. We don't get here today without coming together as a community, as a country, as a people, and saying we have each other's backs. And yes, there are those who we were unable to save. There are the businesses that we will never see again. And we will remember those. And we will learn from those. But we are here today because the people standing behind me came together in some of the darkest times and said, we can do this. We can figure out a path forward to this day where there is optimism, where we are ready to turn the corner. And that's what this is about. We will not forget where we have been as we try to go where we need to go and we build back better as a country and a community. It's about leadership. It's about focus. It's about community. And I couldn't be more proud than I am this day, sitting here with all of you at this moment to say we are ready to turn the corner and be better and do great things. Thank you. Ed's going to give me a hard time if I don't introduce somebody, so I'm going to introduce somebody. Next up is the great majority leader, Steve Finberg.
Thank you, Congressman. I am a little forgettable. No, but thank you, and hang tight, everybody. There's only 19 more people to speak, so we're almost there. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. This is a good day for Colorado. Over the past year, we've lived so many of our moments and so much of our lives inside our homes. And it took the form of work, of school, Zoom hangouts with friends and family. COVID-19 really kind of shrunk our lives to fit within four walls for so many of us. But while many of us gained a new understanding of and appreciation for our homes, we were also reminded of how fragile a thing like housing can be for so many people around the state. This fragility was compounded by what we already knew, that far too many of our neighbors are just a paycheck away from losing the roof over their heads. And for them, their home is an expense, not an investment. COVID-19 laid these conditions bare. Now, just 1 year out from the onset of the pandemic, it's clear we have to do a lot more. Not just to help Coloradans simply have shelter, but so that they can raise their family while building long-term generational prosperity. That's why a major portion, hundreds of millions of dollars, of our federal stimulus will be directed towards increasing affordable and attainable housing across the state and providing new opportunities for home ownership. Throughout the summer and the fall, a bipartisan committee will meet to explore ways of getting people into homes now while increasing housing stability for years to come. That could look like purchasing or building properties to develop into affordable workforce housing so that our teachers, our healthcare workers, our other public servants can build a sustainable future for themselves. It will look like exploring ways to offer down payment assistance for first-time homeowners, opening up new opportunities for Coloradans to build intergenerational wealth, especially when too many find themselves competing with all-cash buyers or out-of-state investors. We'll also explore how Colorado can create public-private partnerships to conduct land banking, where we can preserve our ability to provide housing for generations to come. And of course, it will also mean developing short-term supportive housing for the most vulnerable members of our communities, those who are unhoused. We have a historic opportunity to invest in the long-term prosperity of Coloradans today, to make sure we're not leaving anyone behind in our pursuit of a better tomorrow. So the job at hand for us is very clear. It's to invest in housing in a way that we have never done before, to bring the Colorado dream within reach for more families, and to make sure all Coloradans have a place that they can also call home. Now, I'd like to introduce local attorney as our next speaker, Darren O'Connor.
Good morning. My name is Darren O'Connor, and I'm an activist turned lawyer who now helps tenants facing eviction and homelessness. Once a person becomes homeless, the struggle to regain housing becomes from difficult to near impossible. For example, imagine having to pay $100 or more to submit rental applications only to be rejected because there is an eviction on your record. One of the best times to help people is before they become homeless. I recently represented a formerly homeless woman, a grandmother with PTSD, who fortunately was housed and possessed a voucher that paid most of her rent. When her ex-husband abruptly stopped making alimony payments, she faced eviction because of her inability to pay just $60 towards her rent. Like this grandmother, 75% of Americans have real worries of becoming homeless. Today, 1 in 4 Coloradans are behind on housing payments and face eviction, foreclosure, and homelessness. It turns out high housing costs are the greatest predictor of homelessness rates in a community. High rent equals high rates of homelessness. I don't need to tell those listening today that we have incredibly high housing costs in this region, and we could walk but a block or two from where we stand right now to see those forced to live on the streets as a result. This is why I'm so grateful to share with you today that Colorado is receiving hundreds of millions of dollars provided by our federal government to address this crisis. This money is meant to provide desperately needed rental assistance, to provide desperately needed homeless services, and to provide incentives to local governments to build desperately needed affordable housing. The difference between those 1 in 4 Coloradans becoming homeless or not will depend on quickly getting this money to them. Like exiting homelessness, abiding by the regulatory requirements attached to federal funds is a daunting task. I urge our state and local governments to pitch in resources to make sure that this money reaches renters before they have no address to which to send relief. Thank you, and I'd like to introduce Senator Moreno.
Good morning, everyone, and I'm really glad that our congressional delegation could be with us today because it's appropriate to extend special thanks to them. In a state where economic recoveries are usually handcuffed by Tabor, the American Rescue Plan Act will put us on a better future and a more fiscally sustainable future. So the American Rescue Plan Act matters more to Colorado than most states. And when Coloradans needed them the most, Congress came through. So thank you to our congressional delegation. I have the honor of serving as chair of the Joint Budget Committee, and I've never had such a star-studded cast for a bill that I've been working on. So this is quite amazing. But have been honored to work on a bill with legislative leadership and the partnership of the governor's office that will be introduced shortly to outline how we will allocate and invest those federal dollars. From behavioral health funding to housing to economic stimulus to help our state recover. All of those things you will see very clearly outlined in the bill that is shortly to be introduced. You'll also see that the ability for the state to make up for losses through the calculation that the federal government set out through revenue loss restoration, that's going to be a key facet of this as well. And what that will allow us to do is to put our state on a fiscally sustainable future. So whereas Tabor usually limits growth coming out of recessions, instead we're going to be able to invest in government services. We're going to be able to prepay obligations coming down the road. And at the end of the day, that means a stronger state. That means a more fiscally resilient state. So greatly appreciate the governor's office, the director of OSPB, Lauren Larson, and all of the partnership that we have had going forward to make sure that our state recovers stronger than before. So with that, and I am happy to introduce my partner in crime, the Vice Chair of the Joint Budget Committee, Representative McCluskey.
Thank you, Chair Moreno. What a delight it is to be here today. It is such a good day for all of us. I am so grateful to our governor, my colleagues, and especially our federal delegation who are making this day possible. You know, a year ago, the JBC faced one of the most dramatic and unprecedented challenges in crafting a budget that would get us to this day. And the budget that we've brought forward for next year, I believe, is responsible, fiscally responsible, and make sure that we're investing strategically in a thoughtful economic recovery. But I am most excited today to talk about these federal funds and how we will be investing them to make sure that our workforce continues to thrive and grow, and that we are making sure Coloradans are ready for the challenges ahead. You know, more than a decade ago, we laid out a master plan in higher education for student success, reducing equity gaps, making sure that more of our young and not so young people were earning a credential to help them secure a job that would provide a living wage. The pandemic has set us back. We're not on track anymore for that 66% credential completion in our adult population. And we're going to be investing dollars, these ARPA dollars, to help us get all of those students back to the campuses that they couldn't attend this last year. Get adults who have now found themselves unemployed the credential they need to get back in the workforce and provide for themselves and their families. I am deeply excited about the partnerships that we have built in this state with our institutions of higher education, our workforce development centers, and our industry leaders and employers. The investments that we will make, over $200 million in the next few years to try and bring back our workforce strong and healthy, will make a difference for all of us in Colorado. And while I was going to introduce Mr. Moneybags, the state treasurer, Dave Young, he has graciously said he would wait while the chair of our appropriations committee, Representative Leslie Herod, came down to speak, because we have to get to an appropriations committee. So, Rep. Herod.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. It's a great day for Colorado, and it's a great day in Colorado, right? I'm so proud to be here, and I'm so proud of this plan that we have before you today. Colorado's comeback roadmap was built by Coloradans. That's how we know it works for them. This plan works for your neighbor who was laid off from 2 jobs in 1 year. This plan works for your sister who left the workforce to take on a full-time job at home with her kids. This plan works for the coffee shop around the corner and the business from the corner to the corner. Importantly, this is a comprehensive package that supports businesses and takes care of our people. This is a new decade. We know that Coloradans are overpaying billions of dollars each year in housing costs without reaping and keeping the benefits of having a roof over their heads. It's been long understood that the cost of emergency services and assistance when on the brink of experiencing homelessness is much higher. So, we're making a historically high investment in housing relief, affordable housing, and home ownership. The cost of not addressing these challenges is an undue tax levied on our recovery. This package is how we live our values again and get the most value out of an economy that puts the well-being of its people first. And I'm so glad that this package includes critical mental health relief services and domestic violence services to those who need it first. In our collective state of suffering, we cannot launch businesses, get ahead in school, and keep our economy and communities coming back. We know where we've been in Colorado. Now, here's where we're going. Today, people are working more remotely than ever before. Automation is more prevalent than it has been, and brick and mortar businesses are having to adapt at light speed to remain relevant. Their workers are too. For Colorado to be a regional economic leader, it cannot simply import talent from out of state. Building the ability for people of all backgrounds, from the Western Slope to Denver's House District 8, we can build the skills needed to participate in today's economy and present future increases in productivity, diminish cost of public assistance, and attract companies and industries paving the way into a new decade for our great state. Colorado, Washington has acted, and Colorado will continue to deliver. I'm so proud to be a part of this amazing team that has worked tirelessly to put this package before you today and will continue to work to ensure that Colorado recovers strong. I want to give a thank you to my colleagues on the Joint Budget Committee, a thank you to the Governor of Colorado for his efforts and for our leadership, but I also want to thank the folks who are not behind me, but those who are in front of me and off to the side here, who have the staff who have worked tirelessly to ensure that we have this package here for you today. Thank you so much for being here. And now I get to introduce Mr. Moneybags, former member of the Joint Budget Committee and my friend, Treasurer Dave Young.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Representative Herod. Appreciate that. And I want to say a special thank you to the governor for your brilliant leadership over the past year. Through the face of all this pandemic and economic downturn, it's been a tough time. The governor's staff and the governor and I we're on a 19-stop virtual tour around the state as we listen to citizens and advocates every corner of the state talk about how we need to recover from the economic downturn and the difficulties that we face. And it was an amazing time to listen to those comments, and it's equally amazing to thank our congressional delegation for their hard work to respond with the magnitude and with the speed that we need in order to be able to recover through this event. And so we're going to do that with their help. And now we see the legislature stepping forward with a package of bills based on what we heard on a listening tour. And I'm very excited that we see these bills start to take place. I'm going to be actively working with Senator Moreno on the budget integrity pieces of the legislation. But I'll be playing a role in every facet of this because the Treasury and I stand ready to manage the funds that are coming in so that we can get the best bang for the buck here on the work that's going to be done. So with that, I need to I have a very special person to introduce. My friend, my colleague, former chair that I served as vice chair, the Lieutenant Governor, Diane Primavera.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moneybags. I never called him that when I was in the House with him. And thank you, Governor Polis, our hardworking leaders at the state, Colorado's federal delegation, and community advocates for the opportunity to join you on this historic and this wonderful day. As Lieutenant Governor, I lead the Office of Saving People Money on Health Care and e-health innovation. Throughout my entire career, I've been a passionate advocate for equitable access to health care that treats the whole person, their mind, their body, and their spirit. So while our state has made great progress in providing quality mental and behavioral health care services at a lower cost to most Coloradoans, we heard from Coloradoans in our Build Back Stronger listening tour, which helped guide the roadmap to recovery released today, that there's an overwhelming need for mental health relief, as well as breaking down barriers to access for the future. That's why I'm really proud that approximately $400 to $550 million in state aid from the American Rescue Plan federal stimulus dollars will make a historic investment in direct relief for mental and behavioral health programs. Improving mental health outcomes improves the overall well-being and livelihoods of Coloradoans who have had to put much-needed help on hold for far too long. So I look forward to working with our legislators now and through an interim process to get the most impact out of these funds and increase the reach of mental and behavioral health providers across our state. Over a year ago, we could have never imagined that our mental health epidemic would be worsened by a global pandemic. We have shown strength in the face of the unimaginable. Now it's time to embrace the real possibility of healing. Together, we can ensure that a stronger mind, body, and spirit powers the Colorado comeback. So thank you, and now I'd like to turn it over to an inspiring young woman here with us today to share her story, Annette Bowser.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor Primavera, Governor Polis, legislators, and community leaders for welcoming me here today. Hello, my name is Annette Bowser, and I'm the founder and lead instructor of a mentor and leadership program for young women called Ladies of Value. This Mental Health Awareness Month marks 6 years since I started it, with the goal to shape well-rounded young women in every aspect of life, especially mental balance. At 15, I wrote a suicide note and left home with no intention to return. My family missed the signs, my teachers missed the signs, and my loved ones had to go out of their way to find resources to help me overcome my trauma. I spent my entire adult life going through different therapies and learning mental health best practices. My success and stability has made me very passionate about fighting the stigmas in communities of color and providing accessible avenues for resources. Everything I have picked up through my journey, I pass along to my girls, like healthy coping mechanisms such as journaling, teaching them the value of reaching out for help, and reassuring them every step of the way that it's okay not to be okay, and there's no such thing as a bad kid. Mental health education and resources sheds light on the different traumas we fight every day and fight hard to keep in the dark. That's why I'm so glad that these hundreds of millions of stimulus dollars from the American Rescue Act can help resource centers for healing of the mind and soul, like Ladies of Value, the Center for African American Health, and many others. I want to thank everyone out there working to end the stigma around mental health for people who look like me and give access to all who need help when they can get their healing. Thank you.
The reason this was such a big press conference is this is a big friggin' deal, right? $3.8 billion. Thank you to our federal delegation. This is going to help transform mental and behavioral health, transform housing affordability in our state, and prepare our workforce for the greater success and growth of our economy. Any questions?
Yes, Governor, when you rolled out the Colorado stimulus earlier this year, I think it was earlier this year, you very proudly talked about how bipartisan it was. But I don't see a single Republican member of the minority party here. Did you reach out to them? Did they not want to be involved? And if not, why not?
I expect that many pieces of this will likely be bipartisan. We are still working on the state stimulus. Some pieces of it have reached my desk. Others are on the way. I expect that, well, certainly on the interim processes in these major areas, they'll be thoroughly bipartisan, and I would even say nonpartisan. I mean, they really want to have experts and thought leaders, regardless of what their party is. I'm sure all major parties will be well represented. Next question? Yeah.
Governor, maybe I missed it, but I don't see any money in here set aside for the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. Is any money going that direction from this package?
It is mentioned as one of the areas that will be looked at for the $700 to $800 million that is being held for future stimulus. There's nothing looming on that. That's a 2023 issue. So I think us and the legislature were happy to look at considering that next session.
There was one of the 4 guidelines put out by Treasury that encouraged states to put out basically bonus payments to healthcare workers and others who have worked through the pandemic at risk of their own lives. I don't see that in this package either. Why not?
Well, I would say that many who have worked through and suffered economic challenges during this unprecedented, once-in-a-century pandemic also are the main beneficiaries of work around mental and behavioral health. Many struggle with housing costs. Many want the opportunity to upskill and get an even better job in the future. So this is really tailored to meet the needs that we heard during the Colorado Comeback Tour from all Coloradans. That certainly includes many of those who worked on the front lines during the pandemic.
So we haven't seen any of these bills yet. Have they been drafted already? And will we see actually Republicans on these legislation as sponsors?
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. And we are the bill that Senator Moreno mentioned, the budget integrity bill, will be the big bill that kind of moves and sets up this structure. The Republicans we talked to about the plan, obviously when it comes to the interim and the processes that we set up to dig into the transformational change around workforce and healthcare, or mental and behavioral health and housing, will be very bipartisan. So I think that as we move forward, there will be a lot of bipartisan support for these moving pieces that sort of address these needs.
But no bipartisan support for the first $2 billion that's being spent in the next couple of weeks?
No, I would not say that. Discussions are ongoing.
Those will be bills coming out of the
Yeah, again, I think a lot of what you're hearing today is making sure that we get this all right. So if you're going to create transformational change on mental and behavioral health, then we want to make sure we take the time, bring in the experts, bring in bipartisanship to fine-tune what those solutions are. Same thing with affordable and attainable housing, taking the time in the interim to bring in the experts to figure out what that transformational change is. And then on the stimulus side, the most important thing is that we allow for economists and others to help give us the lay of the land later this fall about where additional investments need to be made to help Colorado build back stronger. There's a lot of money moving around the system now, and so moving that aside till later, I think is the prudent, responsible way of going about it.
Can you explain what you mean when you talk about prepaying for future services with this bill? How do you do that? How does that work in favor?
Do you want to talk about sort of the budget integrity piece? And Ed asked about kind of prepaying or creating that space. So I'll hand that over to the JBC chair.
So under the revenue loss restoration that's allowed for in the formula that's been set out by federal guidance, it amounts to about $1.3 billion. A series of that, it won't all occur just at once. It'll also be envisioned for future fiscal years where we replenish revenues that were lost throughout the course of those 4 fiscal years that are allowed for those dollars to be allocated. Some of those will include prepaying certain state obligations. So maybe we prepay state employee compensation. Maybe we prepay controlled maintenance or other investments that the state needs to make on an annual basis. Every little bit that we do to prepay, when we eventually do reach that Tabor cap, which we will in the coming fiscal years, every little bit we do creates more room in the state budget to still protect things that we care about. So that is, in essence, how that would function.
All right, thank you guys all very much.
Thank you. Well done, everybody.